Hello and welcome to my brand new series, Every Type of Steak, where I show you recipes for every different cut of steak, a different sauce to go with the individual flavour profile of each cut, tips, tricks and culinary techniques that you can use when preparing your meal, plus a wine pairing for each dish. My name is Luke, and I'm a professional trumpet player because who better to learn cooking from than a musician? I certainly know that whenever I need musical advice, I turn to chefs. So without further ado, let's get started with my go-to recipe for an easy steak meal, a ribeye with a classic red wine pan sauce. Now this phase is fairly labour intensive, you have to prep ahead of time and it is totally optional, so feel free to skip this part. But it will give you a better crust than the sock under a single man's bed. I am of course talking about dry brining with salt. The steak that is, not the sock. So what is dry brining? We're basically putting a layer of salt onto both sides of our meat and letting it sit in a wire rack for a few hours in the fridge. This will draw out the moisture from the steak, while also allowing the salt to penetrate into the meat, which helps to concentrate the flavour and tenderise the meat, resulting in a tastier and juicier end product. So into the fridge we go for the minimum of an hour, but this can go overnight if you want. Make sure to have a tray under the meat, as this will leak some juices as they are drawn out by the salt, and as much as we love meat juices all over the fridge, we don't love that at all. So we've fast forwarded a bit, and now it's time to prepare our mise en place. Here we'll need shallots, garlic, thyme, rosemary, butter, our side, a glass of red wine for the sauce, and some good beef or chicken stock. For those who don't know, a mise en place is basically where you have all your ingredients chopped and ready to go, so that you're not faffing around with prepping while you should be doing something as time sensitive as cooking the steak. So we want a nice fine dice on our shallots, lightly crush the garlic cloves, you can leave the skins on if you want, and cube your butter and you're good to go. I also like to put my vegetable waste in a ramekin on the side. You can put this in a bag in the freezer, and once you have enough, make a stock out of it. Also part of our mise en place is our side. I've chosen some seasonal vegetables, but you can go for fries, salad, dauphinoise, just whatever you fancy. For the wine for the pan sauce, don't overthink it. I've just had some of this left over from a few days ago. This will be fine. Any kind of good dry red wine will do, just whatever you have lying around. Now finally, we get our stock up to temperature, a sim is fine, and we're good to go. For your pan, you'll need a really nice heavy-bottomed stainless steel, cast iron or carbon steel pan. Don't use anything too light, as we need the pan to hold its temperature consistently, and please don't use a non-stick, as the heat needed to cook the steak properly is way too high to safely use a non-stick. So we need to take our dry brined steak out of the fridge about an hour ahead of cooking, just to bring it up to room temperature. Pat the salt and the moisture from the dry brine with a kitchen towel, just make sure it's completely off. And I've gone for this lovely thick ribeye with gorgeous marbling, as it's one of my favourite cuts. I'll go into more detail into the individual characteristics of each cut in every future episode, but you can never go wrong with a ribeye. So rub some oil into the surface of the steak. I've used olive oil, which might release a bit more smoke, but any neutral cooking oil will do. Onto this we'll add some salt onto both sides for the seasoning. Many people add pepper here as well, but I personally prefer the pepper not to burn in the high heat of the cooking, so I'll add it later on. Now over a high heat with our pan smoking hot, we'll go in with the steak. There are two schools of thought with flipping. One is to flip once during cooking, and the other is to flip often. Both have their merits, but I personally prefer the latter, as I like to have no surprises, and if you're not careful, the first option can lead you to overcook one side. As you'll see, we're building a beautiful fond at the bottom of the pan. This holds so much gorgeous flavour, and we'll use this as the base of our pan sauce later on. In with our pepper we go. Once you've got a nice crust on both sides of the steak, turn the heat down to medium and add most of your butter, saving some for later, along with the garlic and the fresh herbs. Now we want to baste the steak with this melted infused butter. This is always my favourite part of making the steak, as the smell is to die for. Flip it and do the same on the other side. Once the steak is cooked to your liking, we'll take a clean rack or a chopping board and let it rest in the garlic and herb butter. As a general rule of thumb, you want to let the protein rest for as long as you've cooked it. I'll get more into the exceptions to this rule in future episodes. While the steak rests, it's time to use the same pan to make our pan sauce. If you're using a meat thermometer, be wary to take it out a bit before it comes to temperature, as it will continue to heat up as it rests with carryover cooking. Now for our pan sauce, we add our shallots to the pan over a medium-low heat and cook them until they become translucent. Go in with the red wine and deglaze the fond at the bottom of the pan with a wooden spoon or a spatula. Make sure you really scrape away all of this fond, as it adds so much flavour to your sauce. Now reduce the red wine down to this thick consistency, add some stock and cook down again until you reach your desired thickness. Once we've got to this consistency, I'll incorporate a small amount of butter, something the French call monter au beurre, which really takes your sauce to the next level, giving it a rich and glossy finish. Now we're ready to serve. So you can serve your steak as it is, or I personally like to cut it into thin slices for this presentation. Notice how it isn't leaking juices everywhere because we've rested it. This allows the steak to reabsorb all the liquid, leaving it way more juicy. Now I'm plating it up on a preheated plate. Adding some finishing salt flakes. And our glossy pan sauce. For the wine pairing, I've kept it really simple for this introductory episode. A classic, easy-drinking Chilean Cabernet Sauvignon that I picked up at my local supermarket for under £10. Wines from Chile tend to offer really good value for money, and so are a really good place to look if you're on a budget or just trying to get more bang for your buck. I'll get more into the complexities of wine pairing in future episodes, but the main rule is that you pair your wine to the sauce, not the protein. And so a nice Cabernet Sauvignon will go really well with this red wine-based pan sauce. So there you have it, this is my classic go-to steak with a red wine sauce. Please like and subscribe for future episodes, where I will go into way more depth about the intricacies of each cut, sauce and wine pairing. I've been LVC Food, thank you so much for watching.